Hello, friends, and welcome back to your Daily Detroit Back from Break. It is Wednesday, April 26th, 2023. I'm Jer Stays, and joining me is
Fletcher Sharpe.
It wasn't such a great result last night, though. 3-1, losing to Minnesota United FC. The Loons took it to Detroit City FC in the second half. A tale of two halves, and some glimmers of hope, but also some repeating frustrations. And I feel like we need to talk about it because there's a pattern here.
They also lost to Sacramento Republic over the weekend, 1-0, in a very similar goal. And all 9 of their goals this season have been very similar. I won't say carbon copies, although some have been carbon copies.
You mean goals given up?
It has been Team A puts the ball in Detroit City's box. Detroit City can't clear the ball. Team A scores. Every single goal they've given up has been some capacity of a cross coming in and the ball not getting knocked out, or a cross coming in, the ball getting kicked out right back to the same guy who crossed it back in, or a ball from the top of the box is played in, and instead of them getting the ball out, they can't get it off somebody's foot and they take a shot, or something like that, where a ball comes in from any angle and the ball is not cleared on initial contact and it ends up in the back of the net. I know, at least with me, if I licked my thumb and put it in an electrical outlet and got shocked the first time, I would learn to stop doing that. But it looks like they're not learning to stop doing that. So it's a little, if I were a fan, I'd be a little frustrated. It's one thing with Minnesota United to get beaten because the team is just better than you. Like if the kids they had out there were just running by you full speed, or just stronger than you, or just tactically tearing you apart, I'd say, all right, that's fair. Like you really can't do much about that. But all the goals they gave up last night were literally goals that shouldn't have happened. The first goal, the ball came into the box to Franco Fragapane. He crossed it to Cameron Dunbar, who gave it right back to him. Fragapane had a defender on him when he passed the ball. When the ball came right back to him, he did not have a defender anymore. So it was just him and the keeper. So very easy goal.
All right, so what's tactically collapsing here?
The defense. The defense is like, I don't know what it is. Maybe they're not rotating properly. Maybe they're not communicating as well. The goal against Louisville sticks out the most to me, where they crossed the ball into the box. It got knocked out. One defender for Detroit literally touched the opposing forward and then let him run free and towards the net, who then tapped the ball in for the game-winning goal. It's not you just getting beat because you're getting beat. It's literally you making silly mistakes, playing 80 minutes of decent to great to mediocre sport, and all of a sudden you decide to take 2 minutes or 1 minute or 30 seconds of just not properly thinking, and all of a sudden you're down a goal, or you're tied, or you're down 2 goals. It's the small basic things that are getting ignored, and I'm not sure what to do to fix that. Because one, I'm not a A-level coach in this country, but 2, I feel like at this point they should know what the issue is, and they're just trying to repair it, and they're not doing a very good job. So it's going to be a really long season for Nate if this continues.
Mixed with that is the offensive issues. There was a little bit of hope. Devin Amu-Mensah really showed the difference that he makes on that field in that first half. But again, you put everything on 1 or 2 guys, it doesn't last. And I was impressed with his play. I like that we scored early. It made a lot of fans feel great. And then that second half came and darkness fell.
Devin Amu-Mensah is a dynamic player. Not only is he great defensively, but he's a center back who can bring the ball up and kind of act a bit like a defensive midfielder, which you don't really want as much because you kind of want your defenders to be more towards the back. But if they can help bring the ball up, especially with a team like Detroit, where that seems to be a struggle, that's very helpful. On the goal that they scored, Connor Rutz had a ball. He played it to Devin, who played the ball up to Yazid, who played it right back to him. Devin took 1 touch back to Yazid, who took maybe 1 small stab and just let the ball go, laces through it, off the post and in. And those are the goals you want to see. Like, I know Yazid has scored some goals for Detroit City, but they've all felt like he takes 1 weird touch and the ball bounces funny, then he takes a shot and scores. Or it hits off his head weird and it just deflects. This was the first time I saw him score a goal for Detroit in recent years, where he meant it, like it was demonstrative, like I am putting my laces through this ball into the net. So that was very good to see. It was a very good setup to have. And having Devin be a part of that lets you know, like, all right, maybe going forward there'll be a bit more offensive pressure in the middle. But like you said, the bottom fell out in the second half in just 5 minutes. All 3 goals were scored in a span of 5 minutes. Like, it was like watching a boxing match, and all of a sudden, like in the middle of round 6, a guy just hits you with like a 20-punch combo you can't counter with. The match was decently close for the most part until those 5 minutes. Then after that, the game changed. So you just got to avoid doing that. And I know that's like very much easier said than done, but that's really it. You have to avoid those pitfalls, those moments where you want to turn your brain off, like fight it, because it's hurt Detroit City last year, but especially this year.
I know resources are tight. Can we get there from here? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm looking at this team. I'm looking at the limited roster size. I'm looking at how it's coming together. We had these conversations about gelling and giving all of this extra birth for this team, right? Like, we gave a lot of second chances here, but I can't help but say, like, do we need to make some adjustments, or can we do something? What can we work on?
As of right now, I'm not really sure. They kind of pigeonhole themselves in a very tight spot. They don't really have the resources. They kind of have to go with what they have. I know people don't want to admit it, but I do know the turf field was kind of an issue with a few players coming back. I know, namely Declan Wynn. They'll try to say it's something else, but Charleston doesn't have a turf field, and he seems to be playing a lot better down there on grass. So, I mean,
he played pretty well here too.
Playing a bit better down there. So, I mean, but just the issues they have they can fix. I don't know. I truly don't know. Maybe moving some players around, but also like I don't really know who you can move where, because again, you've pigeonholed yourself with the players you have. So you have to make a few round circles fit into some square holes, and I don't really know if that's the best way to go about managing, but you really don't have another way to go right now. So
I think fans, and I think a lot of people underestimated how much of a difference losing Hopeno and losing Declan Wynn would make. Because, Declan was not less necessarily like the most upfront player, but he was really a big part of this thing. And the offense is completely different now.
I mean, I think they realized losing Hopeno would have an impact. I don't think they realized how much Declan Wynn would have an impact, not just from the standpoint of like defending, but he was like top 3 in the league in setting in crosses, accurate crosses, which helps because accurate crosses find people, even if it's just accidental or anything of the sort, they find people. Having him defensively helped, but having him on the left side also helped. I mean, I know a few people on Twitter were talking about it, and just right now they're like the left side of the team looks a bit dead. And yeah, because you don't have a natural left back on the roster. You have Reese Williams, who's great, but he's a right back. You have O'Neal, who you just signed, who's also great, but he's also a right back. And who you're playing at the left back is either Michael Bryant, who's naturally a defensive mid/center back, or you're playing Lay Jope, who's naturally a defensive mid. So, like, while they have some acumen to play on the left side, they're more accustomed to, like, being midfielders. And I know especially in the first half, even after DC actually scored their goal, the left wing was getting crushed. Like, they were sending in crosses left and right that they were just missing. That worries me. Because whoever's at the wing is supposed to stop that cross from coming in. And I know when they had Declan back there, that didn't happen. I know they had a few crosses come in. I'm not going to say Declan Wynn was Superman, but less crosses came in from the left wing. But when you have people who are not naturally wing backs, who don't understand how to seal off the side, people will then just operate in the best way they can. It's like if you put me out there as a forward, I could, in theory, play the position, but like I'm going to do a few different things because I'm used to being somewhere else. So naturally, my body's not going to tell me, oh, this guy's coming across the ball, get in the way, do something else. If you're a midfielder, you're looking towards the middle of the boxes. Let me go find a body real quick. Let me go find someone else to do something. Let me do this instead of, being out in the wing.
When you're telling me this and explaining this to me, and it all makes sense, and I see it myself, that tells me we don't have the right tools.
I mean, but I also said that earlier in the year when they decided to move Cy Goddard from attacking mid to left wing back. And we've seen Cy Goddard literally play 0 minutes. He's played one game at left wing back. So, like, yeah, that lets me know right there, like, they knew they didn't have the resources. They're going to try to pivot towards that, and it did not work out. So now they're just, kind of up that one creek without a paddle. Because right now, like, that's a problem area. Teams can just attack that point over and over and over and force the team to shift over and then attack the other side. It's kind of like if you start smacking someone with your left hand and they start blocking it, then you move to your right hand, and it's like, oh, well, you were so busy looking at the left, you didn't look at the right, and now I'm just going to keep hitting you over here till you change. I'm going to keep switching back and forth.
I understand, like, the bravado, but there's, like, the bravado, and then there's the reality, and I think 2023 is hitting the reality wall pretty hard. One thing I wanted to mention was there has been some controversy about the smoke last night, and I want to get into it, not necessarily from like the security guard point of view or whatever, because I guess a security guard took one of the smoke canisters. That's all that's all stuff that I don't have all the best like sources on. But I want to talk about how it affects the game, because I think we need to be careful talking about how smoke. I mean, it's fun to watch and all those other things. I'm not saying don't do it. But what I am saying is we need to talk about how it affects the game. Kind of like the timing of the streaker really hurt what was going on. Like it hurt an offensive play for Detroit City. You and I both kind of noticed, and you really like made a good point noticing like the smoke was ill-timed when it came to DCFC's comeback attempts.
Yeah, I mean, I know the first Open Cup match they had against Michigan Stars last year, and they let the smoke off in the beginning of the game. Sure, in my opinion, if you're going to let smoke off, that's fine. If you're going to do it after a goal scored, fine. But like at the beginning of the game where like time is kind of inconsequential, sure, that's okay. Late in the game as a tactical strategy, I don't necessarily like it, but I understand why you do it. It's cheeky. But when you're losing late in the game, I don't know why you'd want to delay the game anymore because you're not getting that time back. And even as I looked through the smoke, I saw Stephen Carroll talking to one of their players and kind of, ribbing each other like, oh, such and such, while gesturing towards the smoke. And I saw an even bigger figure, Nate Steinwasser, throw his arms up in annoyance when like the ref was like, we're going to have to delay the game for a second. Because at that point, you're down, you're trying to catch up, you want to just get the ball back and play and score. So at that moment, having to take a second, maybe you might have had a chance to catch Minnesota, on the break. But with all that smoke, they're going to stop and everyone's going to be able to catch their breath, maybe grab a water, maybe relax a bit. Any sort of advantage you had at that moment is gone.
Let's talk about stoppage time for a second for those that don't understand, because it's a bit of an inexact science. And how do refs generally talk about stoppage time or think about stoppage time?
It's normally if like there's an injury or a stoppage in play for any sort of reason, the ref will take some of that time and put it back on. If it's an injury, he'll try to put back as much as he can. If it's like a random stoppage for some other reason, he'll use his best judgment or her best judgment. And like the problem with smoke bomb stuff is maybe they put the time back on, but maybe they don't. Maybe it's like, you know what? I don't deem this as an important reason. Maybe it's like an 8-minute delay. Maybe I'll give you back a minute and a half or two. If it's an injury, it's like, okay, 5 or 6 or something, sure.
So you're hurting, if we're behind and you let off smoke and slow down the game, you're hurting the club on the field, is what you're saying.
Definitely, yes. Yes, it's about continuity and continuing the game. And if you have any sort of advantage at that moment, the game stops and it's gone. And even with this, back to the clock issue, like, if it's an injury or something, the ref, and an actual injury, the ref can determine, I'll give you back all the time that's being stopped. But if it's something like this, where a fan interference of some sort, you kind of can't, the ref can say, maybe I want to give you all the time. Maybe I want to give you half the time. Maybe I want to give you none of the time. Like it's an issue where it's like, it's up to the ref's discretion how much time he wants to put back on. And I don't really think he put that much time back on at the end of the match. So like, not to say Detroit could have come back in that moment, but it definitely changes the game to the point to where like now we have to restart after, letting this team that might have had someone tired, they get a chance to get some water, catch a few breaths, do something else, scheme a plan to maybe waste some time if they want to. Like, yeah, it gives them the upper hand there. So like, I understand the passion, and even, I'll give fans the credit, because late in games, typically most fans don't do that. They're like, you know what, we lost, let's get out of here. So to do this shows like we care about our team regardless of win or lose, but like maybe you care just a little too much to the point to where you're delaying the game, and at a moment where you really don't want to delay the game. Again, if it happened early on or maybe after a goal scored, I understand. Like those are moments where the goal scored, I understand you're exuberant, you're happy, etc. Early on in the game, I get it. Time losing there really is not going to hurt one way or the other.
Well, especially because stoppage time doesn't carry over, right? Like the stoppage time gets added to the half, and so it's a whole new situation when you're into the second half.
Yeah, if you're worried about a minute or two in like the 3rd or 4th minute of the game, and it's like the 88th minute, like you're looking at the wrong thing. That's why you lost, is you're not focused on the game that's at hand. But like to do that late in the match, like again, DCFC probably was not going to come back, but they had a better chance of trying to come back if they'd kept the rhythm going versus stopping it to like clear out the smoke. And while it was a very good aesthetic, a very good picture taking moment for everybody, a very good feel good moment of something, I mean, even some of the players were like a little not that thrilled at the moment. Like even they appreciate the effort, like they're kind of like, bro, come on, we're trying to play this game real quick and maybe come back. Like, why'd you have to stop the momentum?
All right, this Saturday, Tampa Bay is in town. Tampa Bay in the standings does not have the teeth that it normally does. Usually they're near the top of the table. They are our neighbors in the basement. It is a basement derby in the Eastern Conference. Thoughts? I mean, I feel like we got a chance with this one. I mean, Tampa Bay is a solid organization, but it really feels like they're having an off year.
I mean, they are. They lost Leo Fernandez, who is last year's MVP. They lost him to a blown Achilles, which is horrible. That's a horrible injury, especially for someone who's 31 years old, because it's a lot to have to try to recover from. They signed Cal Jennings, who played for Las Vegas Lights, who was a goal merchant for them. They also signed J.J. Williams from Phoenix and Tulsa, who's a big, strong body. So they have the tools to still score and still be effective. It's just they've been leaking goals at the back. They've given up 10 goals, so there's a chance maybe that Detroit could capitalize there. I guess I'm more of like a blue blood type person. I know when it comes to college basketball, I definitely am. If a team has a good history, I'm still afraid of them slightly. If you're like, hey, you could play against Bayern Munich, and like I know that they're really bad and like all their players have had mutations where they don't have legs anymore, they all have to just kind of crawl around the field, I'd be like, oh man. But it's Bayern, you know? Like it's still this really great German club that has its national history and this rich history. And even though they don't have legs anymore, it's still a really good team on paper. So I don't know. So yeah, I mean, while Tampa Bay is having a down year, especially with some injuries and some defensive issues, they're still the Rowdies. So they still have Forrest Lasso, who before he left to go play in Sweden was a 2-time in a row USL Championship Defender of the Year. They still got Cal Jennings and J.J. Williams. They still have Lucky Msanka, who always seems to come up late with goals, that critical goals to move their team forward. So, like, yeah, while they are having a down year, they're still the Rowdies. They still wear gold and green. So while they don't have Hard Rock on their chest anymore, they're still the Rowdies. So I'm still, a little nervous about how Detroit can go against them, especially when they're still kind of struggling to score goals. If they play the way they played in the first 40 minutes against Minnesota, I think they won't have any issues. I think they'll come out and they'll probably get a win, maybe 2-1, 3-1 probably. If they come out like the second half, like they've been doing all season, they probably tie or lose.
Before I let you go, Jameson Williams of the Lions got handed a pretty hefty suspension. It's the talk of the town right now, and I know you had some thoughts on it. Before we get started, kind of lay out what exactly happened to Jameson here, because I guess it's involving gambling on the facility or at the facility.
Yeah, so he was suspended for 6 games for gambling, betting in the facility. So betting in the NFL is legal as long as you don't bet on NFL games or in NFL facilities, which includes training grounds, team hotels, team flights, etc. So he was gambling not on NFL football, but on college sports, but he was doing it from the training facility. So if they found out and suspended him, I think that's really stupid. Like, I understand not betting on your own league. Like, that creates a much bigger wave of issue because you could bet like, oh, I'm going to have a really good game. And then you could take the under if you're having a good game and then purposely have a very bad game or just not play. And then you win a bunch of money. And everyone who knows this wins a bunch of money. And that's, manipulating, things you shouldn't be manipulating. But if you're betting on a sport that doesn't involve you at all, like it shouldn't really matter where you are as long as the sport's legal.
The weird thing about it for me is that gambling is everywhere in sports. Like almost every team, almost every sports broadcast, everything else, it's whatever Kings and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to like do all the like the brands and give them free stuff without giving us a check ourselves, but like it's everywhere. You know it. Like you look at even the local casinos, it's huge into sports betting. Sports betting, it's its own thing. Like it's everywhere now. So it feels kind of duplicitous to me.
I mean, people made a few jokes. It's like, well, Jameson Williams and another player for the Falcons were suspended by the league for 6 games. This suspension was brought to you by DraftKings.com. And it's like, yeah, of course, because the NFL is sponsored by a bunch of betting things. Like they have, these partners for betting. So just to suspend somebody for something that's giving you money is weird. It's like if, this guy got suspended for drinking alcohol in team facility, which is sponsored by Budweiser. All right, weird. Why is he suspended for that? Is he under 21? Did he drive drunk? None of those things? Then why is this a suspension? Because we just can't have that happening. That's weird. That's weird to me. It's like you can't bet in our facility, which is probably somewhat sponsored by a betting company. That's so strange to me. It's one thing again if he bet it, like people were talking about Calvin Ridley for last year, who got suspended for the entire year for the Falcons because he was betting on NFL games. Not even games he played in, but NFL games. I understand why that might not be great.
Well, because everybody's connected, right? Like these people have a lot of money that would want to influence these games.
Not even that. It could be like, hey, I went to college with this guy. I'm gonna bet on my boy to have a good game. Hey man, run for 5 yards and then hold your foot. And it's like, oh, he's out. I'm winning a bunch of money because I know, like, I could manipulate. You could do that. I'm not saying players would do that, but like players could do that in theory. So I understand why that could be an issue. But if you're in your own like team hotel or on a flight and you're an NFL player and you're betting on NBA basketball or MLB baseball or even MLS or even USL Championship or even, Indian cricket, I don't see why that's an issue. Like it's not related to you at all. Like you can't influence that at all. Like you can't. No, you can't be like, I'm betting on this, and like I hope that this guy throws 7 strikes. If not, then you can't influence that. So I don't see why he should be punished for 6 games for literally doing what they're pushing everyone else to do about the league. I don't understand that concept. It's very stupid to me.
I would love to hear what the audience thinks at dailydetroit@gmail.com, whether it's on the Detroit City FC season, changes you'd like to see made, or Jameson Williams. Fletcher Sharpe, it is so good to talk to you, and it is good to be back behind the mic. Thank you so much, listeners, for tolerating a little bit of a needed personal break. I am so glad to be back in the chair and back with all of you. Fletcher Sharpe, you looking forward to Saturday?
Somewhat, yeah. I think it's going to be a bit better of a weather game. I'm tired of having to go to these home games, and it's like 40 degrees with like potential threats of rain. So I'm really hoping this game is like a bit warmer, maybe no precipitation and maybe not much wind, and it's just a nice, warm, decent day. But I don't know if Detroit's going to keep losing the way they're losing, like it's going to start to take a toll on me mentally.
For sure, as it does a lot of fans. All right, with that, I am Jairus Days. Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town. Talk tomorrow.